What happens when a rising star gets pushed too far on live television? When personal boundaries are crossed and the cameras keep rolling? This is one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history, when Grammy-nominated artist Teddy Swims found himself in a heated confrontation no one saw coming. It's a story about respect, boundaries, and what happens when an interview goes completely off the rails. The Kelly Clarkson Show was having another typical afternoon taping when Teddy Swims walked onto the stage. The audience erupted in applause as he settled into the guest chair, his signature warm smile lighting up the studio. Kelly, ever the professional host, greeted him with enthusiasm. "Teddy, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here," she said. "Your new album has been absolutely crushing the charts. That voice of yours, where does that even come from?" Teddy chuckled, adjusting in his chair. "Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. Honestly, it's been such a wild ride. The voice? I think it comes from all those years singing in church, learning to really feel the music instead of just performing it." "That's beautiful," Kelly nodded, then continued as her producer fed her the next cue through her earpiece. "Now, I have to ask, because our viewers are always curious about this stuff. Your transformation over the years has been pretty incredible. You've lost a significant amount of weight, and I know that's been part of your journey." The comment hung in the air. Teddy's smile flickered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Yeah, it's been a journey for sure. Health and wellness became really important to me, especially with touring and everything." Kelly pressed on, not noticing the subtle shift in Teddy's demeanor. "I mean, you look fantastic now. It must feel amazing to have that confidence on stage. Did you do it for your career, or was it more personal?" "It was personal," Teddy replied, a slight edge in his voice that the audience didn't yet catch. "Health should always be personal, you know." "Absolutely," Kelly agreed quickly. But then her next question came out with less tact than she intended. "But let's be honest, in this industry, image matters so much. Did your team pressure you at all? I mean, record labels can be pretty intense about these things." Teddy's jaw tightened. "My team has always been supportive of me as an artist and as a person. They never made my worth conditional on my appearance." The audience sensed something shifting. Kelly, misreading the tension as nervousness, decided to dig deeper. "Right, but come on. You can be real with me here. When you were heavier, didn't you feel like maybe doors weren't opening the way they should have? The music industry can be brutal about image. Now that you've transformed yourself, surely you can see the difference in how you're treated." The studio fell silent. Teddy stared at Kelly for a long moment, his breathing deepening. When he spoke, his voice was calm but strained. "Kelly, I need you to understand something. My weight was never about my music. My talent was never tied to my size. The doors that opened for me opened because of my voice, my songwriting, my ability to connect with people through music, not because I fit someone else's idea of what a musician should look like." Kelly realized she had stepped into dangerous territory, but instead of backing off, she doubled down. "Of course, I'm not saying your talent changed. I'm just saying you have to admit the industry probably receives you differently now. It's just the reality of show business, right?" "No, Kelly," Teddy said, his voice rising slightly. "It's not just the reality. It's a toxic part of this industry that people like you perpetuate when you make comments like that. When you suggest that my success is tied to my weight loss, rather than years of hard work, struggles, and growth as an artist." The audience was silent, sensing they were witnessing something raw and real. Kelly's producer was speaking frantically into her earpiece, but Kelly pressed on. "Teddy, I think you're misunderstanding me. I'm trying to celebrate your transformation. You should be proud of what you've accomplished." "What I should be proud of," Teddy said, standing up from his chair, "is my music. What I should be proud of is the connection I make with fans who see themselves in my story. What I should be ashamed of is sitting here letting you reduce my entire career to whether or not I lost weight." Kelly looked genuinely shocked. Teddy, please sit down. I think we're having a miscommunication here. I never meant to suggest your talent was tied to your appearance. But that's exactly what you suggested, Teddy replied, his voice now carrying the full weight of his frustration. You asked if my team pressured me, if doors opened differently, if I did it for my career. Every single question was about how my body affected my music, instead of asking me about my music itself. The tension in the studio was thick. Cameras kept rolling as producers signaled frantically from behind the scenes. Kelly's face flushed as she tried to regain control. Teddy, I think you're being a little sensitive here. This is daytime television. We talk about transformations all the time. I've talked about my own weight journey openly. I thought you'd appreciate the opportunity to inspire people who might be struggling with similar issues. Teddy's eyes widened in disbelief. Sensitive? Kelly, do you hear yourself right now? You're telling me I'm being sensitive for not wanting my artistic achievements overshadowed by commentary about my body? And now you're framing it as some kind of inspirational segment I should be grateful for? The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the feel-good TV they had expected. Kelly tried again, her voice faltering slightly. Look, I'm just trying to have an honest conversation here. Your fans see your transformation. They're inspired by it. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that alongside your musical success. There's everything wrong with it when you make it the focus, Teddy shot back, his southern drawl sharpening his words. Teddy's accent became more pronounced as his emotions intensified. When you spend 10 minutes talking about my body and haven't asked me a single question about the songs on my album, about the stories behind them, about the collaborations, about anything that actually matters to my artistry. Kelly's defensive walls went up completely. I was getting to the music, Teddy. This is how interviews work. We talk about your life, your journey, all aspects of who you are. No, Kelly, Teddy replied, his voice steady but fierce. This is how bad interviews work. Good interviews focus on the work, the craft, the message. They don't reduce artists to their physical appearance and then gaslight them when they object to it. The word gaslight hung in the air like a bomb. Kelly's eyes flashed with anger, her composure cracking. Excuse me, did you just accuse me of gaslighting you on my own show? I've been nothing but supportive and complimentary. I'm trying to celebrate your success, and you're attacking me for it. I'm not attacking you, Kelly. I'm calling out problematic behavior. There's a difference? Teddy's voice remained calm, which seemed to frustrate her even more. You've asked me if my team pressured me about my weight. You asked if doors open differently because of how I look. You suggested my career success is tied to my physical transformation. And now, when I point out how harmful those questions are, you tell me I'm being too sensitive and should be grateful. Kelly stood up from behind her desk, something she rarely did during heated moments. You know what, Teddy? Maybe you are being too sensitive. Maybe you need to understand that when you're in the public eye, people are going to notice changes in your appearance. That's part of being a celebrity. And maybe you need to understand, Teddy countered, also rising from his chair, that being a celebrity doesn't mean I have to accept being reduced to my physical appearance, especially not from someone who claims to support artists and their journeys. The studio audience was dead silent, watching this unprecedented exchange unfold. Some even reached for their phones, despite security normally preventing recording during tapings. Kelly's voice took on a sharper edge. I've supported thousands of artists on this show. I've given platforms to people who needed them. Don't you dare question my commitment to supporting artists. Then act like it, Teddy said simply. Ask me about my music. Ask me about the messages in my songs. Ask me about the fans who tell me my music helped them through hard times. Ask me about anything other than whether I look better now than before. Fine, Kelly said, her tone icy. Let's talk about your music. Let's talk about how your newfound confidence, which clearly comes partly from your physical transformation, has affected your stage, presence, and ability to connect with audiences. Teddy stared at her in disbelief. Are you serious right now? Even when you're trying to ask about my music, you're still tying it back to my weight loss. You literally can't help yourself. I'm trying to have a nuanced conversation about how personal growth affects artistic expression, Kelly defended, though her voice lacked conviction. No, Teddy shot back. You're trying to justify your fixation on my appearance by disguising it as artistic analysis. Personal growth and weight loss are not the same thing, Kelly. I've been growing as an artist for years, long before I lost a single pound. My confidence on stage comes from performing, from connecting with audiences, from honing my craft, not from fitting into smaller clothes. Behind the cameras, Kelly's producer was now making frantic cutting motions, signaling her to end the segment, but she ignored him. I think we need to agree to disagree, Kelly said, trying to regain control. Let's move on to your upcoming tour dates. No, Teddy said firmly. We're not moving on. We're not agreeing to disagree. What just happened here was wrong, and you trying to sweep it under the rug and move to tour dates is exactly the problem. The audience was mesmerized. This was unlike anything they had ever seen on daytime television. Kelly's face flushed with embarrassment and anger. Teddy, I think you need to calm down. This is getting out of hand. I am calm, Teddy replied evenly. What's getting out of hand is your inability to acknowledge that your line of questioning was inappropriate and harmful. What's getting out of hand is your refusal to see why reducing an artist to their physical appearance is problematic. I never reduced you to your appearance, Kelly snapped. I complimented your transformation while acknowledging your talent. You spent the first 10 minutes of this interview talking about my body, Kelly. 10 minutes. You asked if my team pressured me, if my career benefited from my weight loss, if the industry treats me differently now. Every single question was about my appearance, not my artistry. Kelly's frustration boiled over completely. You know what, Teddy? I think you came on this show looking for a fight. You wanted drama. You're twisting my words to make me look like the villain. The accusation hit the studio like lightning. Teddy's expression shifted from frustration to genuine hurt, then to something more serious. Looking for a fight? He repeated slowly. Kelly, I came on your show to talk about my music, to connect with your audience, to share the stories behind my songs. I came here with respect for you and your platform. But what I found was a host more interested in my pants size than my passion. That's not fair, and you know it, Kelly snapped. I've built my career on supporting artists and celebrating their journeys. Don't you dare suggest that I don't care about music. Then prove it, Teddy challenged. Right now, ask me about my music. Ask me about the song I wrote for my grandmother before she passed. Ask me about the track that deals with addiction and recovery. Ask me about the collaboration with the gospel choir from my hometown. Ask me about anything that actually matters. Kelly paused, clearly caught off guard. The silence stretched uncomfortably as she struggled to find words. I was planning to ask about those things, she finally said, but her voice lacked conviction. Were you? Teddy pressed. After 10 minutes of asking if I feel more confident in my body? After asking me to give weight loss tips to your viewers? After discussing my workout routine and diet plan? Kelly's silence confirmed what everyone in the studio was thinking. Teddy shook his head sadly. You know what the worst part about this is, Kelly? I actually looked up to you. I grew up listening to your music. I watched your journey, how you faced criticism about your own appearance, how you overcame it. I thought you'd understand better than anyone why this conversation is so damaging. Kelly's expression softened slightly, though her defensiveness lingered. I do understand, Teddy. That's why I thought you'd want to talk about overcoming those challenges. But I never asked to overcome anything, Teddy replied, his voice heavy with emotion. My body was never a challenge to overcome. It was never an obstacle to my music. The only challenge was an industry that made me feel like it should be. The studio was completely silent. Some audience members were visibly moved by the raw honesty of the moment. "I've spent years building my confidence as an artist," Teddy continued. "Years learning to let my music speak for itself. Years trying to show people that talent comes in all shapes and sizes. And in 15 minutes, you've managed to undermine all of that by suggesting my success is tied to my physical transformation." Behind the cameras, Kelly's producer was now frantically signaling again, but both host and guest seemed oblivious. Everything except their confrontation. "I never said your success was tied to your weight loss," Kelly protested, but her voice was weaker now. "You didn't have to say it directly," Teddy replied. "Every question implied it. Every comment suggested it. And when I called you out on it, instead of listening and learning, you doubled down and told me I was being too sensitive." Kelly tried one last time to regain control. "Teddy, I think we both got a little heated here. Why don't we take a breath and start over? I'd love to hear about your new album." Teddy looked at her for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. "No, Kelly, I don't think we can start over. Because starting over would mean pretending this conversation didn't happen. It would mean pretending that what you did was okay, and it's not okay." He began removing his microphone, his movements deliberate and calm. "What are you doing?" Kelly asked, genuine alarm in her voice. "I'm leaving," Teddy said simply. "I came here to share my music with your audience, but instead I got interrogated about my body. I came here to talk about my art, but instead I had to defend my worth as a human being. I came here with respect, but I'm leaving with disappointment." Kelly stood up, panic evident in her voice. "Teddy, please don't do this. We can fix this. We can edit this segment. Start fresh." Teddy paused, looking directly at her. "Kelly, the fact that your first instinct is to edit this out, instead of learning from it, tells me everything I need to know. This isn't about fixing a bad segment. This is about understanding why artists deserve better." He handed his microphone to a stunned audio technician and looked back at Kelly one final time. "I hope someday you understand that when you have a platform like this, you have a responsibility to use it thoughtfully. Artists trust you with their stories, their vulnerabilities, their dreams. That trust is sacred. And today, you broke it." The studio was dead silent as Teddy walked toward the exit. Kelly called after him, her voice desperate. "Teddy, please, let's talk about this off camera. Don't leave like this." He stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back to face her, the audience and the cameras. "Kelly, I've said everything I need to say. My music speaks for itself. My talent speaks for itself. And my integrity speaks for itself. I don't need to justify any of those things to anyone, especially not on a show that seems more interested in my before and after photos than my before and after songs." With that, Teddy Swims walked off the Kelly Clarkson show, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, a speechless host, and one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. The cameras kept rolling as Kelly stood frozen behind her desk, the weight of what had just happened slowly sinking in. The audience remained silent, processing the raw honesty they had just witnessed. What do you think about Teddy's decision to walk off? Was he right to take a stand? Or should he have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe for more stories that reveal what really happens when the cameras are rolling. Sometimes the most powerful moments occur when someone decides they've had enough and chooses to stand up for what they believe in, even when it costs them.